televised game, especially at this point in the season for our Minnesota Timberwolves. So check your internet and find out when the T-Wolves last couple games here are, and watch them, support them, get behind them, because they're a team on the rise. Yeah, their 25-50 record doesn't suggest that right now, but that's 10 more wins than we got last year. You realize if we went 5 for 7 in our last 7 games, we will double our win total from last year? That's insane. That's insane. But anyway, T-Wolves still looking out of the playoffs for the 13th consecutive year in a row here. But there is a very, very hot race for the final playoff spots, as well as the seeding in the Western Conference. Currently, the Jazz are a half a game. The Jazz and Mavericks are tied for the 7th and 8th seeds, with the Mavericks appearing to have the tiebreaker, and the Rockets a half of game back of a playoff spot. So definitely going to be keeping an eye on those 3 teams. I'm hoping the Rockets get in over the Jazz, just because there'll be more teams that I correctly predicted right that way. But honestly, I kind of probably like the Jazz more than I like the current Rockets. Nice thing about the Rockets come playoff time is you've got James the Beard Harden and Dwight Howard and some draw, some star potential to get viewers, whereas the Jazz, those ratings are just going to be atrocious. If you got Jazz Warriors in round 1, nobody's going to. Warriors fans aren't even going to watch that. Some of the Warriors coaching staff is probably going to skip out on some of that series, for crying out loud. But if you got the Rockets, team that they played in the Western Conference Finals last year, a little bit of a rivalry there because of it. You got the Beard, like I mentioned. That at least will get ratings. People will watch that. There will be some intrigue. So hoping that the Rockets end up with that 8 seed. Currently, they're a half a game back. Like I said, Mavericks and Jazz tied for that here. I wouldn't mind seeing the Mavericks fall out of it either, especially with Chandler Parsons being out for the rest of the year. In the 6th spot in the West right now, you've got the Portland Trailblazers. A little bit of a surprise there, to me at least. Damian Lillard, as good as it gets at point guard in the league. He is in a freak incredible one-man show this year. They've got a 2-game cushion over the Mavs and Jazz for that 6th seed, and it looks like they'll be taking on the Thunder right now. Currently, the 5-4 matchup has the Grizzlies all but locked into the 5 seed. Trailblazers could possibly get it, but I doubt it. Grizzlies will then be taking on the Clippers, who are 100% locked in, guaranteed. They are the 4 seed. At 47-28, locked in at your 3 seed as well would be the Oklahoma City Thunder at 53-23, and then the 2 best teams in all of basketball by far, who pray to the basketball gods that these 2 meet on healthy terms in the Western Conference Finals for one of the most epic playoff basketball series of all time. The San Antonio Spurs at 63-12 are 5 games back of the Golden State Warriors in first place at 68-7. Crazy to think that 63-12, and you almost have to win out and have luck to get the number 1 seed on your side of the playoffs. Crazy. But then we move over. That's the picture in the West. We move on over to the East, where we still, like all season, have the Cleveland Cavaliers on top. They have a 2.5 game lead. They're 53-22. Okay? The Thunder are the 3rd seed in the West. They're 53-23. Same record. 1 seed best to 3rd best. Just a little perspective there for you. But the Cavaliers are trailed closely by the Toronto Raptors, the only team that has a chance of upsetting them to get that number 1 seed, although I don't think it'll matter at all, 1 or 2 seed, so long as they have one of those 2, which they will. It's pretty much, it is locked up. 8.5 games back, 7 to go. Yep, that math don't work out. So the Raptors, 2.5 games behind the Cavaliers, currently in 2nd. They are. Little Yoda there almost. Atlanta Hawks sitting in 3rd with a very small lead over the next 3 teams behind them. Hawks at 45-31 are 1 game ahead of the Boston Celtics, Miami Heat, and Charlotte Hornets, all tied for seeds 4, 5, and 6, all sharing the record of 43-31. It appears the Celtics hold the tiebreaker, and then the Heat, and then the Hornets. Hornets have been one of the 3 best teams in basketball for the last 2 months now. with the Warriors and the Spurs. Absolutely amazing their run on. Nobody wants to run into them in the playoffs. I don't think anybody wants to play the Celtics. And the Heat are scary if they're healthy and firing on all cylinders. Rounding out the playoff picture in the East, we've got the Pistons currently holding down the 7th spot at 40-35. These are where we could get some mixing and matching yet. And then in the 8th seed, 1 game behind the Pistons, is the Indiana Pacers. In the 9 seed, 1 game and 1 spot out of the playoffs, is the Chicago Bulls. Crazy to think that they might miss the playoffs. I am so hoping that either the Pistons or the Pacers fall out of the playoffs and the Bulls sneak in as the 8th seed, and we get the rivalry Bulls versus Cavaliers in round 1. Again, that would be fantastic for NBA business and NBA fans in general. So there is your current NBA picture, and we only have a little bit of balls dribble left here. Moving on to the college landscape, where we will start this week with the too often neglected and overlooked women of college basketball, where last I checked, UConn still owns the entire world, and they just rent out small living spaces to everyone else in it. Want to say they've won 120 out of their last 121 games, something to that effect. I am not exaggerating or making that stuff up. It's absolutely absurd, their dominance that they have in the world of women's college basketball. But let's take a look at where we're at in the women's college basketball tournament right now, so that you know what's happened and know what to look forward to and is going to happen coming up here within the next week as they close out their season and determine a champion. And it appears to me, while I've not been following along as closely as I should, it appears to me that the women's NCAA college basketball tournament is down to their Final Four, exactly the same as the men's is. Now, these semifinal, the first round of the Final Four semi-action for the women will take place on April 3rd. The first game being number 1 seed in the tournament as well as in their region, the UConn Huskies, the Patriots of women's college basketball, taking on the 2 seed from the Dallas region, and that would be Oregon State, the Beavers. Go Beavers women's basketball team. I will definitely be cheering for the Beavers in that game. I expect UConn Huskies to win that game easily. They have dominated up until this point, their closest win being a 21-point victory over Texas, 2-seed Texas, to make it to the Final Four. Before that, they stomped all over 5-seed Mississippi State, 98-38. Before that, they took it easy on Duquesne, 97-51, and in the first round, they took it easy on Robert Morris, 101-49. But again, they will be taking on the Oregon State Lady Beavers basketball team. Can't imagine that the Beavers have any chance. Huskies roll to the finals. They will be playing the winner of Syracuse versus Washington. Syracuse, a 4-seed out of the Sioux Falls region, representing 3 hours from my house. And Washington, the 7-seed out of the Lexington region. So you've got a 1-seed versus a 2-seed, and then you've got a 4-seed versus a 7-seed. And it looks like the UConn women Huskies will once again dominate their way to a women's NCAA basketball championship this year. That game will be held on, the championship game will be held on April 5th at 8:30 on ESPN. ESPN will also host the UConn-Oregon State semifinal game at 6 o'clock, and ESPN2 will have the Syracuse-Washington game on April 3rd at 8:30. These are probably Eastern times. Not 100% sure, though. But I'm definitely going, like I said, I'm going UConn. Let's go with Washington over Syracuse. Why not? It's been all upsets that whole side of the bracket anyway, so we'll continue with upset. And then UConn over Washington. Would that be a Huskies versus Huskies matchup? Yeah, totally. Going for that. That's what's going to happen. And the Huskies are going to win. Lock it in. Boom. All right, so there. So shout out, giving some attention and some love to the women in college basketball playing for the championship. Tune in if if you're into that sort of thing. Now, maybe you are into the men's side of things more so, or maybe you like them both and you're just going to binge on college basketball for like the next 4 to 5 days or whatever it is here. Well, let's get you caught up then and close out this show before Ball's Deep Thought of the Day, that is, with the men's college basketball tournament, where since the last time we talked, we had the Sweet 16 go down last Thursday and Friday, and we had the Elite 8 take place on Saturday and Sunday. So we are left now with our final 4 teams playing for the coveted March Madness Championship and representing the South region, the number 2 seed, Villanova. Congratulations to them. They beat Miami in the Sweet 16. They beat Kansas in the Elite 8, the number 1 seed in the tournament Kansas was, let alone in that region. Many people's pick to win it all, but alas, Nova beat Kansas and advances to the Final Four. Sleeper pick. Kudos to Nova. Kansas, meanwhile, beat Maryland in the Sweet 16 to take on Nova. Nova beat Miami, Florida. Down in the West region, the winner who will take on Villanova, and this should be an epic, great matchup between 2 seeds. We have the Oklahoma Sooners. My pick to win the West, and they did win the West. My pick to go to the championship game. We'll see if they in fact can accomplish that against Villanova. Oklahoma has been playing some of the best basketball consistently of any team in the tournament. However, that's exactly what we all said about Virginia before. Well, we'll get to Virginia. So we've got Nova facing off against Oklahoma. That game is April 2nd. That would be Saturday. That game is Saturday. Both Final Four games are on Saturday. Not sure which one's first. I'll try to find some times here quick before we're done. But anyway, recapping just a little bit, Oklahoma got there by defeating number 1 seed Oregon in the Elite 8. Oregon defeated Duke in the Sweet 16 to get to the Elite 8. I had Duke winning that game against Oregon in my bracket. Alas, Oregon proved that they were worthy of a number 1 seed, but in their next game, Oklahoma proved that very same thing about themselves, and they got to the Elite 8 by defeating 3 seed Texas A&M in the Sweet 16. So that was nice to at least have one region where we've got the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds holding it down in their region in the Sweet 16. I like when that happens at least once. Moving to the other side of the bracket, in the Eastern region, we have the lone number 1 seed representing in the Final Four, and that is the University of North Carolina Tar Heels. While I said that they were my second least favorite team of the 1 seeds, I also said that I felt they probably had the easiest path to the Final Four and championship by far of any of the other 1 seeds as well. So this isn't too big of a shocker. But they got to the Final Four by defeating Notre Dame in the Elite 8, and prior to that they defeated the 5 seed Indiana, who took out my Eastern representative, the University of Kentucky. North Carolina, while I said they had the easiest region for a 1 seed to get through, in my humble opinion, they actually took on some decent teams. Providence was no slouch as a 9 seed. Indiana was an excellent 5 seed. And then Notre Dame as a 6 seed. I don't know. Okay. But how did Notre Dame get to the Elite 8? Well, they beat Wisconsin in the Sweet 16. I was actually kind of pulling for both Wisconsin and Indiana to win those Sweet 16 games and have an all Big Ten Elite 8 in the East region. But alas, neither of them came through. We had UNC versus Notre Dame. UNC won, and they will be taking on the Cinderella of the dance. And considering the name and tradition and history of the university, it is almost a ridiculous thought to call them a Cinderella, but the Syracuse Orangemen, who many argued were the worst team in the tournament and the least deserving to have a berth in the tournament of all the teams.